probably no house advantage. All right, Stokastic, here we go. Instead of the hot mic, we need to have the hot camera just so the rest of the audience can see Matt LaMarca trying out some dance moves. Looks like a beach volleyball player.
Oh, they're not trying out, EMac. They are well proven dance moves.
Well oiled.
Oh yeah.
Crowd pleasers. Oh, good times. We have good times here tonight. 3 games on our slate, 2 6:00 games. And then an hour and a half after those games finish, the third game's going to start.
The classic 6-6-10 games.
Which is just kind of wild. It's really going to be 11 o'clock East Coast because, of course, we did fall back by an hour. So whatever you do, don't get caught up watching Sunday Night Football and miss whatever shenanigans are going to. Oh, we're good. The Clippers, they're always straightforward with everything. You got no problems here.
I kind of like the 6-6-10 format because depending on how things go it's 6 in the 6 o'clock window, I might just call it a night, but if things are one way on the fence, whatever, I'll be playing around with late swaps and trying to maximize equity in that way. But yeah, it's a weird format. Certainly there's no shortage of injury news despite there only being 6 teams to choose from tonight. So we still have some stuff to break down. And maybe Edwin Diaz's new record-setting extension. If we had really running out of time, I'll give you my thoughts on Edwin Diaz coming back to Queens.
Ooh, you mean the former Mariner Edwin Diaz, right?
Well, yeah, like 4 years ago, former Mariner.
That name sounds familiar. Back when the Mariners were horrible. Que horrible, is what they would say in Mexico. Alrighty, so let's jump on in here. Wow, we've already got about 600 people watching. That is phenomenal. Please hit that like button and subscribe. Helps us out. Also, the vast majority of our shows do appear in podcast form, including almost all of our videos on demand. You can get that on the Stokastic Podcast Network, available at pretty much any podcast platform that you can think of. It is there. We have a variety of shows broken out. I do like the betting show by Matt or by Gajeski. Too many Matts on the show, by Gajeski and Ben Raza, because that one comes out I think on Tuesdays or Wednesdays, and they take an early look at lines, and they've been really doing quite nicely with the closing line values.
This was a big week for CLV. Just to take it a step further, like if you had Washington and Atlanta today, like I did, if you got them early in the week, you won because you got both lines at 3.5. If you did not, you pushed because you got them at 3. So
yeah, and it's these little things that are helpful. And sometimes if the lines go the wrong way, they'll buy themselves out of their position or something, injuries or whatever happens. And in a lot of cases, you can just cash out your bet too, depending if it didn't move too much. You'll get most of the value back. Just a little service fee from the websites, but you guys can definitely check that out. You can also wager using BetMGM, which is one of our presenting sponsors tonight, along with No House Advantage. We'll talk about them because they're going to offer you a way to get 2 months of all access Stokastic Platinum for free. All righty, let's ease our way into this. We can go game by game, and then we'll goof around between each game. Again, there's just 3 of them, but there is a fair amount of news. So with our first game, we have Washington going into Memphis. They will be without Bradley Beal, who is in the health and safety protocol for like the 3rd or 4th time this pandemic. I've lost track. There was a few false positives, but there seems to be the creeping crud that is going around the NBA right now. And there's, unless it's a new strain of COVID, because there are quite a few people that have popped up in the health and safety protocol who were under other illnesses and then weren't testing positive, felt better and played, and then ended up testing positive, like patient 0, also known as Rudy Gobert. So no Bradley Beal. Memphis is going to be pretty much at full strength. The interesting thing when Beal is out, he has taken quite a step back from dominating the ball this year. Of course, now that Washington has Kristaps Porzingis and Kyle Kuzma, Monte Morris is functioning as the point guard. There's not going to be one person that directly steps up to fill this void. I'm guessing Kuzma and Porzingis will get some more shot attempts. Monty Morris isn't going to do a whole lot more. He's kind of appropriately priced because Coach Wes Unseld has zero issue of going to a variety of his backup guards to just facilitate, like Denny Abdia or even Will Barton can function as a point guard. So this is just kind of a weird one where Beal being out isn't just that's the guy I want kind of moment. And now Memphis is double-digit favorites here. But Ja Morant projects as one of the top 3 point scorers tonight. So we have our first puzzle here. Take us through the Washington Wizards side of things. Using up the Kristaps Porzingis as a center, it hurts tonight because there are multiple viable centers.
That's true. I do think that Porzingis is still, we'll call him a stud on tonight's slate. Like, he's one of my highest owned stud players at 7,900. There are, some high priced options to choose from on this slate, but I find myself leaning into a little bit more of a balanced approach than usual. I like a lot of these guys who are in that sort of 7 to 8K type range, highlighted by Porzingis. He hasn't been great so far this season with Beal off the court. He is averaging just 1 fantasy point per minute, but we're talking a 17-minute sample size. And we saw last year that when he was playing in Washington in games without Bradley Beal, he was pretty good from a fantasy perspective. So I have no real concerns about him. I think he's a very strong play on this slate. The rest of the team, Kyle Kuzma, I think you can make a lot of the same arguments. He's another guy that we have really seen play well in games without Beal down the stretch last year and at times this season. Then it gets questionable, right? Then it's like, where do you want to go? Monty Morris is sort of the next guy up for me. But I agree with what you said about him not seeing maybe as big of a spike as anticipated, right? So with Beal off the court this season, his assist rate is up to just 20-ish%. Sorry, I had it. 21.7%. And that's over 62 minutes. So a little bit of a larger sample size there to work with. So I don't think that Morris is going to be this, primary distributor for the Wizards, going to be a guy who posts, a 40+% assist rate now just because we're removing Beal from the equation. So he's somebody that I will probably be a little bit underweight on tonight. I would much rather go with Will Barton, who's 4,200 on DraftKings. I just think he's a better per minute type of guy. He's upped his fantasy production to roughly a fantasy point per minute with Beal off the court this season. So those are sort of the primary targets. You could sprinkle in some Rui, some Kispert, some Denny, some Anthony Gile, right? Like we're talking 3-game slate. So you're going to want to have, or at least I have, 5 to 10% of a lot of these cheaper players. But I do think for the most part, I'm focusing my exposure on this team around Porzingis, Barton, and Kuzma.
All right. It looks like Corey Kispert probably going to start. We don't have the starting lineup yet for this one. I'm just looking at some game notes here on Twitter. This is courtesy of Ava Wallace. Corey Kispert in his second game back will start in place of Bradley Beal in health and safety protocol tonight. Wes Unseld Jr. declined to name the rest of his starters, but noted that Anthony Gill is feeling under the weather, although he is available.
Okay.
He's running an 11-man rotation. That's the other thing. It's like there's nobody really stepping into anything because he plays freaking everybody on the bench here.
Yeah, that would be interesting if Gio for some reason doesn't start. That would make the Wizards a whole lot more appealing because he's the guy that you kind of feel the best about getting the minutes on the wing for them. Well, when we're talking about the cheaper players, but he's just so bad on a per minute basis. Like he is not somebody that has very much upside at all. So like if we were to lower his minutes and give them to somebody like Denny Avdia, for example, I would be a little bit more intrigued by that situation. Kispert moving into the starting lineup, it doesn't really change much for me. He's kind of in the same mold as Anthony Gile. He just doesn't provide very much fantasy value. We saw him play, 30 plus minutes pretty regularly last year, and not a ton of fantasy value came from that.
No, he hits the occasional three, but that's really about it. God, I miss some. I can't even think of the names of their players, but Admiral Schofield, some of these guys that also played for the Washington Go-Go's, their G League team. It was like those guys are a little more exciting because they just come up and chuck. But this is, it looked so promising after that nice little start. Not so much. It's going to be another typical Washington Wizards season. All right, let's move on over here to Memphis. To circle back. So Kyle Kuzma definitely should see an uptick in shot attempts. Probably Porzingis as well. We know that Kuzma can get double-digit rebounds when he wants. He can pop off for some assists. So the challenge is there's plenty. I mean, hell, even Porzingis is a good passer, right? So it's not like anybody's going to come in and be the assist guy or anything like that. But I think that the additional field goal attempts are going to go to the front court first before it goes to anybody notable on the wing or in the backcourt. So I think that's the main takeaway here. What do we got from Memphis here? They are, let's see, mostly healthy, if I remember correctly. Yeah, they don't have anybody dinged up at this point. So you've got obviously the Ja Morant question. What do you want to do there? Do you want to roll the dice on some Tyus Jones, who has carved out a role as the backup? Could get some fourth quarter run here. If I remember correctly, he's about 5K on DraftKings. This is the kind of decisions we're going to be making with 6 teams in our player pool if you don't want an entire lineup of Toronto Raptors. And unfortunately, we're capped at 5 on DK and 4 on FanDuel, so we have to pick a few other players here. What do you got here for Memphis for us? Let's start off with the backcourt.
Yeah, so the Ja is certainly in play as a stud tonight. I mean, he's arguably has the highest raw point projection on the slate. And that's certainly a valuable thing when you only have 6 teams in action. I'm just not getting to him all that often, right? We have him projected right now for close to 22% ownership. He's popping in the optimal rate around 24% of the time. I'm not getting to that level with him. I think 10-1 is ultimately too expensive for him when this team is, basically at full strength. We've kind of seen it with his recent performances. He hasn't really threatened that 50 fantasy point outcome. So I think from a pure value perspective, Ja is not a strong play for me at 10-1. If you want to make the case that you're going to just need the raw points tonight, then I think that's your better argument for Ja. But I am not finding myself getting there very often.
All right. And then as we move down the rest of their players, with Memphis also being healthy, it just becomes a little bit difficult to get overly excited about them. Now, Steven Adams, always in play. He is someone I'm looking...
Boston, Mike.
Pardon?
Did you see that clip? It was like
no, I have not.
It was like a post-game interview, and they were like, Steven, how did you were you surprised at because he had 19 rebounds or whatever? Are you surprised at yourself controlling the glass? And he's like, well, I'm a big bastard, mate. That's what I'm out there for.
A big bastard. Nice. So that fills in nicely. In 5 or 6 of his last 7, he's got double-digit rebounds, and the other one he has 9. His prop was 9.5 earlier today. Hopefully it's still there. You can check that out on OddsShopper. See if you can get that at BetMGM, where we'll be talking about. I don't know that I'd put $1,000 bet on it, but reasonable odds for him to get double digits in his last few games: 19, 11, 9, 10, 11, 13. So 5 of his last 6 games he got there. So that's pretty good considering he's done that in 24 or fewer minutes in all but 2 of those. So he's collecting on the glass pretty well. So I think that's an interesting option. 6,800 though makes him a little tougher to get there on like DraftKings. But he's also been taking some shots. I mean, he's had half a dozen makes in his last 2 games. That's allowed him to get 40 and 51 fantasy points. That's something we see, every other week he gets something like that. So the mirage is going to happen. He'll get the boards, but his 2 games prior to that, so 13 points, 14 points, 2, 2, 12, 9, 2, 6, and 3. Which one of these is not like the others? the double-digit scoring nights, but the rebounding is there. So he's kind of a one-trick pony. When he puts it all together, all of a sudden, like, oh my God, Steven Adams was amazing, and he was only 5,200. I can't believe it. Well, he's 6,800 now because it's Slate smaller, and he's coming off a couple.
Where are you seeing him at 6,800?
Oh, I'm sorry. I've got Showdown open.
Okay, I thought that might have been what it was.
Sorry.
5,500 on the main slate.
Okay, let me switch.
And I do like him at that price tag. As you mentioned, though,
I was building Showdown. So
clearly. The issue with him is that he's center only, and you're going to run into some other strong center plays on this slate. So I find myself, I have about 15% Steven Adams. I think that's going to be pretty close to what the field plays him at. I feel pretty good about that. He's averaged 1.1 DraftKings points per minute this season. So I think if you're looking at the Grizzlies roster, he is probably the best per dollar play at the moment. I also like Desmond Bane at 7,800. He kind of falls into a lot of these mid-range builds that I have going right now. Only played 24 minutes in their last game, but for the most part, the usage has been up this season. We know that he's capable of getting hot from 3-point range. Like I would much rather play him at 7,800 than Ja at 10,000. Right, so he's averaged 1.25 DraftKings points per minute this season. I think that 7,800 is still very reasonable for him on a 2-game slate or 3-game slate. Sorry.
And the question will come in. Well, what about the blowout risk? Well, do you think the Jets and Bills, were you worried about the blowout risk in that game? I wasn't. I laid 11.5 or 12 points on that in one of my parlays. Oops, perhaps I shouldn't have, right? Weird stuff happens. It's why they play the games. Was that a realistic outcome? No. Is Washington somehow staying in this game till the fourth quarter out of question? No, not at all. So this is one of those where we're just going to roll the dice. If you can't cut out the entire player pool, and we're going to have money to burn once we talk about Toronto and the Bulls here coming up. So looking now that I'm officially on the main slate, look here, I'm focusing on, why is it not filtering? There we go. So you mentioned Desmond Bane, 7,800 shooting guard, small forward eligible. That's going to put him pretty much everywhere on DK. Adams looks much more palatable at 5,500 as opposed to the what did I say, 68 he was on Showdown. And then you've got, it flattens out quickly. You really need somebody else to be out because Dylan Brooks, Tyus Jones, Santi Aldama, Brandon Clark, John Concha, they're all going to get somewhere between 17 and 22 fantasy points. If one or two of them out, somebody would look more appealing. It's kind of almost a hot hand situation there. So they would be the ones that could excel with extra fourth quarter run in a mop-up duty scenario. But if the Wizards are keeping this somewhat close, then it's going to be the starters and a cast of thousands because this is another team that runs a relatively deep rotation here. Anything else we can wring out of this game?
I will say of that tertiary group, Santi Aldama is my favorite, right? I think his minutes are pretty secure. I think he'll get to around 28 minutes. He's been decent on a per minute basis. And you can play him at power forward, which is a big plus compared to some of the other big men. So I like Santi at 4,500. He's somebody I have exposure to tonight. I don't really have any John Concha. I don't really have any Tyus. I don't really have any Dylan Brooks, but Santi is someone who's finding his way into my lineups.
All right. And then I see in chat, they're saying, what is this? A DK only show? I just happen to be playing on DK today because I'm also doing all the football games. I'm doing NHL. I'm doing Showdown. I'm doing way too many things. But yeah, we'll throw out a little FanDuel information here. You do have on FanDuel, if you're behind the paywall, and by the way, if you've never signed up for Stokastic, you can go into the description here below us. There's a way you can get all NBA free for 3 days, a trial period there. If you've never subscribed to Stokastic before, you can get all this information firsthand for yourself on demand. Kristaps Porzingis is the most popular option. He's coming in at almost 50%. He does have power forward eligibility on FanDuel, which makes it quite helpful. That has him as one of the more friendlier position eligibilities there because he will qualify at 3 different spots. He's still not great from a point per dollar. He's at 4.8. We're trying to get around 5. But tonight, with the way everything's shaking out, that's one of the better ones. Kyle Kuzma actually comes in as the best option from the Wizards. He is at that coveted 5 points per thousand mark. He's 6,200. He qualifies at both forward spots. And then the other popular option is Ja Morant. He's 35%. He's 9,900. He's got the 5-figure. I think he's 5 figures over there on DK, but he is coming in with a projection that is going to be hard on a point per dollar look. However, raw points is where he wins out. So those would be the 3 plays I would look to on FanDuel. Where is they usually underprice Will Barton? Will Barton's at 4,500. He'd be your discount du jour on that one, and he's eligible at shooting guard, small forward, so he qualifies for 4 spots on FanDuel. All righty, any FanDuel love from you?
I think let's move into the next game because we got some big news that Zach LaVine has been ruled out.
Okay. Well, while we're working on that big news, I've got some big news. You want to get 2 months of Stokastic for free? Well, all you got to do is sign up for BetMGM if you don't have an account there already. That's right, 2 months for free, and you're going to get $1,000 risk-free bet when you sign up and make a deposit. Once you've made your first paid wager at BetMGM, when it settles, they'll send us a note. We'll get you those 2 free months of Stokastic Premium. You can go in through the link in the description here below us. There's also a landing page on our site that tells you how to do this. But basically, you create your Stokastic account if you don't already have one. You sign into that, click through the big MGM button that appears after you register, or if you already have an account when you log in, and then complete the necessary steps with BetMGM. That would be creating a sports book account, depositing at least $10, and making your first paid bet. That will get you your path to 2 months of Stokastic Premium. By the way, this 2-month offer, that's going to be going away pretty soon. And then it's going to be 1 month, and then the offer's not going to be here. And then I'm going to get people on Twitter saying, where's that deal to sign up for 2 months? And we go, it's gone. Kaiser Soze, dust in the wind. All right.
Love that movie.
You're my boy, Blue. You're my boy. I'm just gonna cross-pollinate all of these movies here between the usual suspects, old school style. All right, take it away. Hit us with the Zach attack.
Right. So no Zach, front leg of a back-to-back. They're opting to rest him on the road as opposed to at home. So now, in my opinion, that vaults DeMar DeRozan to the clear top stud of the slate status. He's 8,400 on DraftKings. That price was arguably too cheap to begin with. And now you factor in Noah LaVine, and I think he's an absolute smash. 9,400 on FanDuel. I have no problem paying that price tag for him either. But the DraftKings price is just way too cheap. So now I think that just sort of solidifies a balanced-ish lineup. Like, I wouldn't necessarily want to pair DeMar with a Ja Morant. I would rather go with, a Kristaps Porzingis and get a couple of those guys in there. So I think he's a huge beneficiary. We also get some backcourt value. Goran Dragic becomes really interesting to me at 3,400. He's already been kind of serving as like the facilitator of the second unit. Now he's going to get a little bit, possibly more minutes, maybe even a little bit of a boost in terms of his per minute efficiency. So 3,400, I think that's a strong price tag for him. Alex Caruso, I would imagine he moves into the starting lineup, picks up a few additional minutes. He's in play. Patrick Williams is in play. Javonte Green is in play. Ayo Dosunmu is in play. And then Vucevic, center's tough tonight. I still think he is more of a secondary type center option, but I do think he's somebody that you want to have some exposure to.
So interestingly enough, this has really, really, really boosted the cheap bulls on DraftKings from a point per dollar. So you've got Javonte Green eligible at both power forward spots. He's 3,500. We're projecting him for 23 points. That's a 6.5 per thousand. That's a very good number. Goran Dragic, as you mentioned, he's 3,400. He's coming in just a tick below Green. You've got Caruso as well. he has a few more raw points than Dragic, but he is also $800 more. But those have suddenly surged ahead of Scotty Barnes as one of the best point per dollar options. Again, this is the NBA. Weird stuff happens all the time. But for a hot minute there, the Chicago was mostly healthy. I say mostly because obviously Drummond's been out for a while, and so has Kobe White. They're both still out tonight, and prices have been factored in. And then we're not going to get Lonzo Ball until after the first of the year at the earliest. He's still dealing with recovering from his knee injury. So the taking Zach out of this is different. Now, these two teams play in Chicago tomorrow. Every team in the NBA does play tomorrow. It's going to be a really fun schedule. Now it's going up against Monday Night Football. I wanted us to do like a telethon type show, because the games are tipping off in 15-minute increments all night tomorrow. That is just going to be news after news after news. So sadly, they're like, yeah, I don't think so. Can we have a little fun here? No, fun is not allowed. Fun is not allowed. But this is kind of a good spot for a lot of the Chicago folks. Now, here's the next question. None of these guys project for more than 30 fantasy points. How overboard do you really want more than two of these cheapies in your lineup?
No, I don't think we need to do that, considering the other value that we already have, right? Like, I still prefer some of the cheap guys for Toronto, who we'll get to in a minute. I would rather spend down on those guys if we're, going position agnostic type of thing. But I do think that having pieces of Chicago is certainly a wise decision at this point. And, my whole thing about a balanced lineup, like, maybe you don't even need to go that route now. Maybe you can just jam in all the studs and all the values and just make it more stars and scrubsy. So I'm going to have to rework some lineups here in the next half an hour for sure.
Are there really studs tonight?
Studs-ish, stud adjacent.
Is it adjacent? So, because Paul George, DeRozan, Vooch, Kristaps, Scotty Barnes, they're everybody that projects over 40 fantasy points. None of them are over 45 fantasy points. I'm looking at you, FanDuel, because we still give a little love to FanDuel every now and then. Ja does get over 45 on DK, but he's 10,100. So this is going to be an interesting slate. We have a fun little puzzle here, and we won't know the results until well after midnight tonight. It's going to be a long one for those of you bold enough to stay up. What else would you like? Is this a remember me game for DeMar DeRozan, or is this he's familiar with the shooting background in Toronto? Should I go that route?
I think he's happy where he is. I don't necessarily buy into the revenge narrative. I'm sure he's going to get a super friendly ovation.
Yeah, they love him up there.
It's more just the usage and the assist rate. Like, DeMar has become a really, really more like a much more well-balanced basketball player than he was as a younger man, right? Like, back in the day, he was kind of the king of the empty stat line, but now he's racking up assists. He can hit the boards. I do think that if DeRozan was to play like a full season without Zach LaVine, he would probably be a 9,500 to 10K type of player.
Okay. So you're saying not everything's about three-pointers these days?
Not when you're DeMar DeRozan and you can drill him like he can from the mid-range.
Good times. Good times. I see Drop Roses says that Pat Williams was supposed to be the next Kawhi Leonard till the injury. Well, now he has a better chance of being Kawhi Leonard because Kawhi Leonard has the injury, right? That's lofty praise for Pat Williams. That guy can disappear for weeks at a time. I've never seen a player quite like him. Well, there's lots of players like him. It's frustrating that he didn't even come close to living up to the hype. So, sadly. Skeptical? No, you're good.
He's still got time. I mean, we'll see what happens.
This is just his third season, right?
Yeah, and he missed a lot of time with an injury. We'll see what happens. He's still got plenty of raw talent, and I think he plays an important role for the Bulls as kind of like their lockdown defender. But Yeah. I don't know if his game is going to get to anywhere more than that.
All right, let's move over to the Toronto side. So big news here. Pascal Siakam out with the groin issue / adductor. He is not even going to be reevaluated for at least 2 weeks.
Nick Nurse needs to be stopped, EMac.
Yeah, this is not good. We also have Kem Birch out with the knee issue. And then Fred VanVleet missed the last 3 games with the sore back. He's returning, but has he been run into the ground? Because he and Siakam have finished the top 3 for minutes the last couple of years before they spontaneously combusted on the field or on the court. We got Scotty Barnes coming off his first career triple-double in the last game. You've got OG Anunoby, who already is going to bring the steals, the blocks, the rebounds. Now he's going to have to shoot. That looks good. Precious Achiuwa was racking up the boards and the putbacks when Siakam was out of or missed time in the last game. So he's an intriguing option. Chris Boucher, they're going to have to play Chris Boucher, right? They try not to, but this is an obvious. Oh, shoot. No, this is an obvious situation. So therefore they can't play Chris Boucher. He's in play still. You've got Gary Trent, 3-pointers. And then more 3-pointers, not much else, but he's still in play. He would have been a little better off without VanVleet. And then the biggest trap of all, Otto Porter Jr. Let other people play Otto Porter Jr. Over under on Otto Porter Jr.'s minutes tonight, I'm setting it at 17.5.
I think that's a good number. I have him projected for 18 minutes, so I guess I will take a slight over, but I don't feel great about it. I always get Jordan Klein because one show I made a joke about Otto Porter revenge against medical science because he can never stay healthy. He plays more than 24 minutes. He falls apart. It's a true story. That's NBA champion Otto Porter right there. All right.
Yes. All righty. Take us through Toronto here because there's a lot to dissect, and this is really where a lot of the fantasy points will be coming.
So we'll start with the one member of the team that you should not play, or the one member of the starting 5, which is Christian Koloko. Just you didn't even bring him up. I think that's perfectly acceptable. You don't need to play him.
We'll put him in the Otto Porter category. If I lose to those, perfect, no problem.
I'd rather play Otto Porter if we're being honest. The rest of the team is very, very appealing. I mean, I have to rerun my lineups now with some of the Chicago news, but I have OG, Boucher, Precious, Barnes, and VanVleet all in at least 50% of my lineups. And Gary Trent checks in at about 30%. So I have a ton of Toronto exposure. I love the cheap big men coming off the bench. Precious is averaging like 1.14 DraftKings points per minute with Siakam off the floor. Boucher is at 1.21. I think you can play them together. I don't think you necessarily have to choose between the two, but they are probably somewhat negatively correlated, right? Like if one guy pops off for 40, it's going to come at the expense of the other player. So I think choosing between the two is probably the smarter idea, but if they're naturally coming up in lineups together, I don't mind that all that much. I think Scotty Barnes takes on more of a primary ball handler role, even with Fred VanVleet back in the fold, right? VanVleet has not really been serving as much of a facilitator for the Raptors this season. And he will probably see a bump with Siakam out, but I still think that Barnes is going to be doing more of the heavy lifting in that department. OG, another great per dollar play. I mean, he's a fantasy point per minute type of guy anyway. Should play 37, 38, maybe even 40 minutes, depending on how frisky Nick Nurse is feeling. So yeah, it's a team that I have a ton of exposure to. I'll probably dial it back a little bit, get some more Chicago in there now, but I think that they're the best team to target on the slate.
So for Chicago, will you end up setting a rule? Because I'm starting to run some crunches now, and it is popping up where you're getting, like, I would prefer not to have Javonte Green and Patrick Williams in the same lineup, and I'd kind of prefer not to have the same thing with Dragic and Caruso, although both those guys have a decent chance of being in a closing lineup, whereas only one of the other guys might crack the closing lineup. So for me, I think that might be the rules. Just say no more than one of either of these two pairs.
Yes, I like those rules. Or even if you wanted to just do like if Javonte Green is included, then lower Patrick Williams projection by X percentage, and that will kind of naturally remove the odds of those two being paired together.
Yeah, that's also a good point. All right. What else can we work out of this one? This is a lot of moving parts here.
Yeah,
this is where the slate's going to be made or broken.
For sure. I think if you played entirely this game, like if you had all 8 of your players on DraftKings from this game, I don't think I'd necessarily hate it, to be honest with you.
So I ran some unencumbered, hat tip to Josh Engelman for that term, unencumbered crunches. The vast majority were coming up without anybody in the late game. We know it's not possible. No one has ever won a tournament without a player from the late game in the history of DFS, at least according to Twitter. Could that actually happen tonight? Your currently winnings are at risk because you're going to be staring at those for 90 minutes before that last game even goes.
It's perfect though. You grab a couple of screenshots, you throw them on Twitter. It's all about that clout, EMac. You know that.
Boy, this could be the night though. This could be the night we could see that tired old trope retired. We'll see. All right. Let me make my Caruso group here. Let's put in Dragic. Now, see, I actually like these guys, so I will do the what is it? Apply the adjustments, because I'm okay if I ended up with both of them in my lineup. I don't want both of the other guys. Just not worth it to me. All righty. What say you? If you could only pick 2 players from this game, who would be your top 2?
2 players from this game. Okay, that's a great question. I would have to pick DeMar DeRozan. I just think that his raw point upside is the top mark on the slate. And then for me, it's close between OG and Chris Boucher. I think I'll give the slight edge to Chris Boucher from a value perspective. On DraftKings, at least, where he's 4,400. He's much more expensive on FanDuel, but 4,400 on DraftKings, like he has the potential to 8-9x his salary if he hits his ceiling. So that's hard for me to pass up.
All right, here's another thing I am doing to make, well, first I'm zeroing out Koloko, Gafford, Kessler, all these idiots. I don't want Covington. I don't want Batum. Okay, so I've capped, let's see, I've got 10 centers here. I'm going to cap them at 25 each on DraftKings. That is coming in under Porzingis. We've got at 44 as this DK, under Siakam. Sorry, Siakam's not in. Under Vucevic, who is at 32, and just above on Chris Boucher. And I think we'll see more than 17% Precious Achiuwa. So I'm going to move him up a little higher because I do want to be above the field. I'm going to go 30 there. The reason I'm doing this is I really want to spread out the players here, and I don't want too many lineups to have 2 centers, but I've done the math here, and I still will have some lineups that end up with 2 centers. I don't want the vast majority of them to tonight, just because it's a limited number of player pools, and I could see the rug getting pulled out for Vanderbilt or Steven Adams or Kelly Olynyk or Boucher or what, right? And all of a sudden you're like, well, the only ones I really trust are Porzingis and Vooch. Then those are the 2 most popular ones. So
I'm going to add Zubac. I know we haven't gotten to that game yet. I would make a case for Big Zoo, assuming that Robert Covington is out. That's the big X factor here. If Robert Covington is out, I think Zubac remains around 30 minutes. And 30 minutes of Zubac is a much better player than a $6,500 price tag.
He can put up 40 fantasy points in 28 minutes. We've seen him do it. He also can come out after his first rotation with 16 fantasy points and end the third quarter with those same 16 fantasy points. And then not
the Mason Plumlee special.
I called it the Marcin Gortat.
That's even better.
Saw it a lot. I watched it. First, it's like 7 points, 4 rebounds, and assists. Boom! The Polish hammer. Nope, not tonight. It's not Polish heritage tonight. So no, didn't work. Okay, well, I think we have one more game to go. I'm going to remind everybody about No House Advantage. They are the sponsor for the show. We're going to talk about them in more detail after we break down the next game. But the key things you need to know is they have some contests with big overlay. They have their contests are a little bit different. They do pick 'em contests, and essentially you choose from about 50 or 60 player props, over or under, and these are static props. So think of these like salaries, right? When salaries are released, they don't change. So you go over or under, and then you rank these with confidence points. The smaller slates or the showdown slates for NFL, you pick 7, they 7 through 1. The larger slates, they'll do 10 questions and you rank them 10 through 1. If you get correct on your over or under of the prop you've chosen, you get those points. Those points are what you compete with other players on. Overlay is entirely their strategy for marketing. They have us putting free projections for their site on our site. We also break out the optimal lineups for you. We've built out a couple hundred lineups for each slate with the best probabilities in descending order of what's going to happen. They also, on their site, they have a lineup creator, a lineup generator. You can go in and select the players that you like more or less, and then just build lineups on their site that then can export over into the contest. They're doing this because they're like, hey, we want to make this easy for you. We'd like to see you guys trying, and you gals too, trying over at our site. This is a good way to go. So this is something that I think is going to be a lot of fun tonight. They have their contest has only 10% filled right now. $15 entry fee. It's $5,000 to first. There are 122 lineups out of 1,200 in there. This is going off in 16 minutes. There will be massive overlay in this one tonight. The other thing that's important to remember, don't play anybody who's hurt or is going to be out. You don't get points. If they don't set foot on the floor, don't get cute and play Pascal Siakam tonight with unders. He didn't set foot on the court, doesn't count as a play. You burn in that spot. They also lock at lock. So there's no late swap or changing, etc. So if you're rolling dice on Robert Covington somewhere, don't. Because if he ends up sitting, you can't do anything about that. Or do if you're feeling like living on the edge. But why would you need to live on the edge when there's so much overlay in this contest? They're going to end up paying out 3x the value of what they're taking in tonight. That's crazy. They're going to pay out double what they're taking in tonight for their NFL contest. Check out NFL Live Before Lock 7:15. That is going to be with Eric Lindquist and Neil Orfield, also sponsored by No House Advantage. You come in through the link below us here. They'll get you a $50 deposit match on your first deposit. That's pretty good. I think that's pretty good. Do we need to make that any better?
I'm ready to jump in. You got me. I'm foaming at the mouth over here, EMac.
All right. So lots of fun over there. Lots of fun. All right. Let's get on to the next game. And then we'll break. I'm going to upload my lineups and then we'll break down some more No House Advantage. We've got Utah at Los Angeles taking on the Clippers. Kawhi Leonard out. Luke Kennard out with the chest injury. Bonero is in the health and safety protocol. You mentioned that Covington may or may not play. He's in the health and safety protocol as well, though he's been out. So he could be, as long as he gets 2 negative tests in at least a 24-hour period, he will be able to play. And then Vanderbilt dinged up as well. Vanderbilt, to me, always a trap. He doesn't shoot the ball enough. So when you see his great games, he's kind of like, he's the Steven Adams, right? The rebounds are going to be there. His minutes are going to be there. He may only shoot 4 times in a game. That's crazy, right? If you go look at his game log, it's like, oh, wow, he shot 7 times in the game. Made 6 of them, but he only shot 7 times. Yikes. So I'm always nervous about playing him.
Yes, I agree with that assessment. Before we dive into this game, I do want to just throw out that the Wizards starting lineup is in.
Oh, okay.
And they are starting Denny Avdia over Luis Gil. So that's interesting to me. I'm not, Denny Avdia is not a permanent dynamo by any stretch of the imagination, but you factor in no Bradley Beal and Denny becomes a guy that's slightly interesting to me at his current price tag. And I don't think he carries nearly the same ownership as some of these other, value forwards. Like obviously the Toronto guys are going to be way, way, way heavier owned, as they deserve to be. But sprinkling in some Denny, I think makes sense with him as a member of the starting lineup.
Yes. His biggest challenge is he's not afraid to pass the ball, meaning he doesn't take his own shots. It's like he's the new Tomas Satoransky. So literally. But he's fun to watch. He's just too smart to shoot. He plays within his skill set. He needs to talk to Dylan Brooks a little bit. I think that would help Avdia. That would help.
It's Avdia. Like that's like when Jason Tatum went to Kobe school for a summer and everybody was like, I don't know if that was the best idea. Ended up working out for him though.
Yeah. All right. Take us through the Utah side here. Whole new team. They're half a game behind the Western Conference leading Phoenix Suns here. At some point that's going to disappear, but it's kind of fun for the time being.
Yes.
What are you thinking here from the Jazz?
Greg Ehrenberg's Utah Jazz. I don't know if you have talked to Greg about this, but he has them at 14-1 to make the play-in tournament. And he's now worried that they're too good. They're going to get a guaranteed playoff spot.
Oh, this was they needed to be in the tournament.
In the play-in tournament specifically.
Okay.
I said, yeah, Greg, I don't think we need to worry about that quite yet. But
yeah,
maybe in a couple months, who knows? I think for me, the Jazz start with Jordan Clarkson. I think he's pretty fairly priced right now at 6,300 on DraftKings, taking over sort of, lead guard-ish responsibilities alongside Mike Conley. He's averaging 1.09 DraftKings points per minute this year. I had a bunch of him. I've come down on him just because some of the Chicago guys now are gaining more exposure for me, but I think Clarkson is very playable at 6,300. Lauri Markkanen is fine for me at 7,500. He has already shown a 50-point ceiling multiple times this year. I have no problem paying 7,500 for a guy that can get into the 50s. I'm less in on Kelly Olynyk and Mike Conley. I think both guys are okay at their current salaries. Like they're not egregiously overpriced, but there isn't as much value with them as there are with some of the other guys I previously mentioned on Utah. So I'm kind of low on them. I have a little bit of Colin Sexton, a little bit of Jarrett Vanderbilt, but this game, it's not going to carry a ton of ownership. I think Clarkson and Markkanen are the two best targets for me on the Utah side.
All right. And then our main guy, Paul George. Paul George absolutely been phenomenal. He'll get some games off here and there, but as long as Kawhi is going to be limited, or even if he's not going to play for a while, George is going to have to play major minutes. We should expect anytime he's going to be starting mid to upper 30s. He has averaged over his last 3 games 37.4 minutes, 20.7 field goal attempts, 8 from beyond the arc. He's not going to keep shooting 58%, but he does drop the stats in every major category here. Paul George, I think, is our play of the night. Paul
George
might
be your play of the night.
Or
it's not mine.
Okay. Who's your raw point scorer of the night?
I'll raw points is different. I'm gonna say DeRozan still. I think DeRozan outscores him, but for sure when you factor in that he's $1,100 cheaper, give me DeMar every time. Fair enough. Play both together. That's also more than acceptable. But
yeah, that shouldn't be too tricky to make that work as well. All right, what do you got from the Clippers here? I'm going to upload my lineups, and then we'll throw a few no house advantage things out there.
Yeah, I think Robert Covington's status is like sneakily important. Is sneakily a word?
It is not, but we will allow it tonight.
Sneaky important?
Technically, sneakily. I think technically it is. It's like supposedly is really a word, but people misuse it instead of supposedly. So it's kind of a malpropism, if you will.
Oh, a malpropism. Did I say that right? Guaranteed. Let's move on. Let's move on to basketball. If Covington remains out, I like Marcus Morris at 5,800. He has been playing pretty much all the minutes he can handle for the Clippers with Covington sidelined. 35, 34, and his last couple of games, 37, 3 games ago. I think he is a decent permanent option. Again, we're kind of getting to the point where I think stars and scrubs are going to sort of take over the slate. But if you are looking for some mid-range type options, Marcus Morris definitely stands out for me if Covington sits. I touched on Zubac already. He's probably my favorite tournament center tonight. If Covington is out, I just think that his upside is far greater than that of a $6,500 center. He can very easily get into the 40s. And like, it wouldn't shock me if he outscored Porzingis, So I'll take some leverage with Zubac tonight. I have some John Wall. He's still pretty cheap at 4,900. He's been playing pretty well for the Clippers when getting opportunities. So that's kind of it for me there. You could play some Norm Powell, but he has just been so bad to start the year. I don't expect him to shoot 30% from the field forever, but maybe he will. I don't know. So for me, it's PG, it's Zubac, it's John Wall, it's Marcus Morris.
I didn't hear Colin Sexton at all in our discussion.
Yeah, I didn't really bring him up. I do have right now. I have about 15% Colin Sexton.
Okay, I'm going to play him over on Yahoo. He is $16 over there, so I think that's a reasonable price point. I just throw that out for.
Yes, good call. Good bring up, EMac. I am sorry that I overlooked him.
All right, we've got about 7 minutes to go here, so I'm going to see if I can get my darn computer to log into No House Advantage because I want to see that overlaid there. Let me see. I don't have my password saved. Why does it not save for whatever reason? I must have clicked the box that says make me ask me every time because I have to then remember my password. I should just change it to something that makes sense or that I would easily know. But see, then that would be bad because then people would guess password 123. I mean, and password 123 ! They don't like me doing that either. Okay, so there we go. We're in. So we've got where is their contest? So right now there are 216 people in a contest that is going to be paying out 370 spots, $5,000 to first. This is crazy.
That's crazy. I would get in there. That's a free roll.
Yeah, it really is at that point. So I'm seeing here No House Advantage. We have our optimal lineups page. We have where are we? So don't take the Bradley Beal over points. That would be bad on No House Advantage. I see that's there's a glitch in our information page. All right, well, here's the raw here's the raw projections. It looks like our optimal lineup page is not quite operating in fine fashion tonight, but these are all free. And of course, we No House Advantage wants these in front of the paywall so you guys can take a peek at them. And that son of a bitch, these are yesterday's projections. We are not allowed to have anything nice. That's what it comes down to. Let's throw out some fun ones. Let's look at Precious Achiuwa. We're going to make a quick lineup here. 7.5 points. Do you want over 7.5 points or over 5.5 rebounds?
Points.
Okay. Let's take another person. Let's go with Fred VanVleet. VanVleet, do you want over 16.5 points or 7.5 assists?
Can I take under 7.5 assists?
You can take under 7.5 assists.
All right, that's what I'm taking.
All right, let's pick another player. Who's from the DeMar DeRozan. Would you like more than 23.5 points or more than 4.5 assists?
Over 23.5 points, please.
All right. I have to hurry because I want this to get in. Throw out another. Who else do we have? Vooch. Vucevic, do you want over 15.5 points or over 10.5 rebounds or over or under or a 30 PRA?
Over on the boards.
Okay. And then that means we need to get Steven Adams in there and go over on the boards.
Yes.
Let's see what they have him at. 8.5. We're definitely taking the over on that. We've got.
How about like a Will Barton PRA?
Will Barton has 15.5 PRA.
Yeah. Over.
Okay. And let's see. Porzingis, we can go with, he's got 18.5 points, 8.5 rebounds, or 31.5 PRA.
I would take the points over, I think. Actually, it looks like Odd Shopper likes the over on the rebounds.
And then that means we need Kuzma. Kuzma is 15.5 points, 7.5 boards, 28 PRA.
Yeah, I'll take the points over again. We're just building all overs, baby.
Well, that's the only way to play. I don't think unders count here. I'm running out of players. Paul George doesn't have it. Who else has major changes? Achua, Boucher. Did we already do Boucher? 6.5 points, 4.5 rebounds. I think 12.5 RPA. I think 12.5 RPA.
Yeah.
And then our last spot here.
How about like Alex Caruso?
Caruso has 8.5 points, 4.5 rebounds, 3.5 assists, 1.5 3-pointers, 18.5 PRA. 8.5 points, I think. Or do you want the PRA?
I think I'd feel better about the assists.
3.5 assists for the over. There we go. Let's submit this. We are successfully in. Look at that. Built on the fly. Now you can see what we did here. And this is kind of a good exercise. So our projection feed is mucked up. Well, it'll be fixed for NFL. I'm making some calls right after this show. There will be projections from No House Advantage football. Damn it, there should have been for baseball, but the hour time change and the 6 o'clock start and blah blah blah. So you saw what we did. This is the key. One, there was so much overlay we had to jump on it. Two, what did we do? We went down every player we could think of that would be impacted by an injury. And we were going to hit their overs to see if it worked out, with the exception of Fred VanVleet, which pains me. Which pains me that you make me take the under for this guy.
Ooh, and it's the black and gold. I do love that jersey.
It is the classic. Shout out to Rinpack, who gifted that to me, because Rinpack is an awesome dude.
Shout out to Drake.
Yeah, Drake as well. Yes. All righty. So aside from that one, we were trying to take advantage of anybody that was going to be filling in a void or going into a new role. Now, if we had a little more time, yes, we'd want to go lay these out, look at the different probabilities, etc. But you saw us build out a lineup. We started this with 5 minutes to go. We built it out in just over 3.5 minutes. So it is completely possible to get in on this overlay. Now they lock, so we can't just register and then, I'm going to pick this stuff from the late game. That would be nice if they did, but there'll probably be less overlay if they did that as well, because people are so busy worried about their other sites. This money spends just as good as the money on DK at FanDuel. It's easier to get. That's No House Advantage. You can use the app. You can use the website. We've got the free projections. They have their own lineup builder as well. It's a lot of fun. They want you guys to have fun over there. They're making it very possible to do that. So we will see. We made it, Matt. Only 4 hours until the Clippers Utah Jazz tip off. I'm going to be in bed in about 2 hours. So. Oi, good times. Good times. All righty. Final thoughts as we slide on out of here.
Yeah, jam DeMar on DraftKings, get in the cheap Raptors big guys, and big Zubac. Watch the news, because I think that that Robert Covington status is going to matter, and I think it's going to be very easy for a lot of people to just set it and forget it tonight. So monitor the news, take advantage of the late swap if you can.
All righty. Well, with that, we're going to get on out of here. 7:15. Tune in. Come back again. Eat a little dinner. Come back. Watch the fourth quarter of some of these afternoon games, and come on back and check out NFL Live Before Lock. That's going to be with Eric Lindquist and Neil Orfield. You could follow Matt on Twitter at Matt LaMarca. I am at EMac DFS, and of course, it is Stokastic_COM. With that, gamers, good luck. Hit the like button.